It's that special time of the day. It's the best football show. I'm Brian Baldinger. I'm your host. I'm here nearly every day. You can download a free Odyssey app and find this show and follow it, like it, subscribe to it. And we go live a bunch. So fire your questions at me, and you can find me at Baldy NFL across all the social media platforms. Posted a bunch of stuff on Travis Hunter last night and Shedeur, amongst other players. Drew Kendall from Boston College on Twitter or X, on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube. So that's where you find it. Let's start today with some of the news that broke yesterday concerning the Miami Dolphins and Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey, it looks like he wants out of Miami, and it looks like Miami has agreed to let him out. So right now, Jalen Ramsey, who is entering, I believe, without looking it up in front of me, I believe Jalen's entering his 10th year. One of my favorite players in this league. But it looks like Jalen Ramsey is going to be available for somebody via a trade. Now, going back quite a few years, he had publicly said he would love to play with his former Florida State teammate, Derwin James. So he's just putting it out there. The Chargers last year, Asante Samuel got hurt. They started two rookie corners for the most part, zone corners. But Jalen Ramsey might change things. I think the Chargers finished the season ranked number one in scoring defense, fewest points allowed. I believe that's true. I can look it up. It's been a while now since I looked at stat. But I think the Chargers finished the season like that. Now, Jesse Minter's the defensive coordinator. I believe that Jalen Ramsey, if he would go to the Chargers, and they got to work out contract and compensation, so I'm not making this deal public. But I believe Jalen Ramsey has played on the number 2 defense in the league in Jacksonville. He's played on the number 1 defense with the Rams and won a Super Bowl. I just see where the Chargers finished second in scoring defense last year. All right. And that's with Asante out, 2 rookie corners. They really turned things around with the new defense coordinator, Jesse Minter. And I thought they were much better up front now. Joey Bosa's gone. Khalil Mack is back. So they've got pieces. But I believe Jalen Ramsey can make anybody better. I mean, he could play your number 1 receiver, and he loves that challenge. You have a big X receiver. You have DK Metcalf. You've got Nuke. You've got some of these big A.J. Brown. He wants that assignment. But he can play the star position like he did with the Rams, and he can play in the slot, and he can be a good tackler, almost like a big nickel. He could do that. So these are a variety of ways you could play Jalen. If he doesn't get any action, he gets a little bit bored, like a lot of corners do. He wants the action, all about the action. So anyways, it's something that is newsworthy as we now count down 8 days until the draft. 8 days. And I feel like if this deal is going to get done, it would probably be better if it got done before the draft. So teams that were looking to draft a corner maybe might not be so aggressive about it in the early rounds. Maybe they'll take Jalen Ramsey going into his 10th year. And, oh, by the way, 10 years in his business and nearly healthy every year. He might have missed a game here or there, but he basically lines up and plays every week. So that's that. Let's get to what I've been talking about over the last couple episodes, and that's my top 32 players, my big board. And I've broken them down into 3 segments. All right. Tier 1 was difference makers, 11 players. And in that tier, I felt like all 11 players that I put out there are going to start next year. Wherever they go, they're going to start, including Cam Ward, who was my 8th pick, 8th best player in this draft. He'll start Tennessee. Then my tier 2 players are what I call no fear. I don't think there's any fear about drafting these players. I don't think there's any fear about these players turning up on some kind of a, report where they got to go answer to the law. I don't think there's hidden, let's just say, hidden things in their background that can come out via once they're drafted. Like I think they're clean players. So my tier 2 players, I call them no fear for a lot of reasons, but draft these players, you feel pretty good about what you've done. I remember Charlie Casserly telling me that as a GM, when he was a GM of the Washington Redskins for a long time. Charlie is a dear friend. He was a great evaluator. But Charlie said the biggest fear they had was after they drafted a player, they went to their first minicamp, whether it was just a rookie minicamp or minicamp with the veterans, and you realize you drafted a player that can't play. You see it right away. It's a mistake. And I got to tell you, as a guy that played 12 years in the league, you go to that rookie minicamp or you go to that first minicamp and everybody's there, free agents, rookies, the whole thing. And you look at these rookies and you're like, what did we do? Like, how did they make this mistake? Or you look at a guy and you're like, oh, thank God he's on my team. Like you see it, you see it without even pads on. You see it. You can feel it. Like when I was in Dallas and Billy Bates signed as a free agent, like that guy was wrecking people. Like the first day we put pads on, you're like, that guy's going to be a player. Mark Tuinei was a 7th round draft pick out of Hawaii, UCLA. And Tui was, we knew that guy, you could play that guy at 8 different positions: tight end, tackle, defensive end. We knew that guy was a player day one. Anyways, so let's get to my tier 2 players. At number 12, because this goes 12 to 22, Arman Membou from Missouri, offensive tackle. Then Omarion Hampton, the running back out of North Carolina, followed by Matthew Golden, the wide receiver from Texas, who transferred into Texas last year. He was at Houston for 2 years. Then Tet McMillan, the big wide receiver from Arizona, followed by Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan, followed by Emeka Egbuka from wide receiver out of Ohio State, followed by Nick Emmanwori, the safety out of South Carolina, followed by Tyler Booker, left guard, Alabama, Shedeur Sanders, in the news every day for whatever reason, the quarterback out of Colorado, Deion Sanders' son, Mike Green, talented rusher out of Marshall, transferred from Virginia, and then finishing up with Donovan Azariaku from Boston College. That's my next tier, the no fear tier. 11 players. Now I'm going to go into about 5 of these 11 players, all right? Let's start with Arman Membou. Because Arman Membou, he started 30 games at Missouri at right tackle. Okay, he's been a right tackle. Can he play left tackle? Well, when he went to the combine, he blew the combine up. He's one of those combine warriors. At 6'4" and change at 332 pounds, he ran a 4.940. Now, I'm not a guy that believes the 40-yard dash says everything about a player. But, for example, Lane Johnson is a Hall of Fame right tackle for the Eagles. His time at the combine, when he was coming out, I think he ran like 4.79, maybe the second fastest time ever for an offensive tackle. You could see his movement. Like I think Lane still runs a 4.8. He's been in the league 13 years. I'll bet Lane still runs a 4.840. But he's an incessant warrior, always working out. But Arman Membou is a guy, he's 30 starts. Now, I've talked to a general manager that is in the offensive tackle business. Like, they need a tackle. And I said, Arman Membou, is he finished? So he said, he's got a long way to go. You're drafting Arman Membou because you think he might have a higher ceiling than, say, Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas because of his athletic ability, because of his speed, foot quickness, agility. I don't think he's as physical as you need, especially in the run game. Missouri has not had a lot of good players over the last few years. And so I say that because, like, who's he, maybe he went up against Darius Robinson a lot last year when Darius was a first-round pick at Arizona. But there's not a lot of players at Missouri that you're going up against that where iron is sharpening iron. However, Arman Membou could be a tier jumper. He could get into the first round. Now, here's the deal. Will Campbell, who's my number one tackle, and I think he's clean, and I think he's going to be the first tackle taken. Somebody else might covet the athletic ability in that 4.9 40, a good 10-yard split. Somebody might covet that more because he does have, good arm length, and he does have great speed with a guy that runs, that at 330 plus pounds. Somebody might covet that. Let's just say, whether it's Jacksonville or whether it's New England, somebody, or the Jets, somebody that's looking for a tackle. Now, I don't think either one of those teams, the three I just mentioned, is going to take a tackle. I might be wrong, but I don't think Arman Membou is going to beat Will Campbell. However, if it happens, I'm just telling you, some teams might covet the upside. Okay. The next player I want to talk about is Matthew Golden. He's my number one wide receiver. Now, he transferred into Texas after playing his first 2 years at Houston. All right, now he gets to play with Quinn Ewers. He gets to play with Archie Manning. He gets to play with legit big-time talent. All right, Xavier Worthy is gone, right? Isaiah Bond is there. The offensive line is proven, right? Calvin Banks is a first-round pick at left tackle. He goes to a team that was in the playoffs the year before, lost to Washington, went, a long ways this year. So he transfers into a much better program. The head coach is a great coordinator, and he has a great year, 82 catches, over 1,000 yards. The thing that he has, he's got speed. Now, speed isn't everything. He got Xavier Worthy drafted. Xavier Worthy had some shining moments. I think Matthew Golden is more than just a 4.29 40. Like, he's a blazer, but he can run routes. He stops on a dime. He can explode. You want to run, the quick game, the quick screens and the hitches and things, and just getting the ball into fast guys' hands. Like, he can explode with it. So he's not I don't think he's as fast as Tyreek Hill. He's fast though. I don't think he's as strong as Tyreek. So I don't want to really compare him, but he's got good size, great speed, and he's a good route runner. He's my first wide receiver, all right, in this draft. I've got him over Tet McMillan. I've got him over Emeka Egbuka. I've got him over Luther Burden. He's the only wide receiver he's the first wide receiver off my board, the top 32. Tet McMillan's number 2. The other guys follow. Egbuka, he follows. In fact, I think there could be a run of receivers. In fact, I have Golden at 14, McMillan at 15, and Egbuka at 17. We've seen that before. 2 years ago, we saw in the first round 4 receivers go. All right, 1, 2, like in the middle of the first round. All right, they went 4 in a row. So you can see a run of receivers. You want one, one of the elite guys, and I put Burden up there. You're going to have to spend probably a first-round pick, high pick to get there. That's Matthew Golden. All right, let's go to my next player, Will Johnson. So if you take Travis Hunter out of the cornerback market just because he's the unicorn in this draft, I've got Shedeur Sanders as my number 1 corner. He's my 11th best player. I got Will Johnson as the 16th best player. Now, if you went just by the 2023 tape and you watched Will Johnson, you'd go, okay, here's a guy, 6'1", 195 pounds, and can run. How fast he runs, we don't know because he hasn't run. But he got hurt early this year, missed the rest of the season. With the turf toe, there was questions. Could he have played through it? Should he have played through it? He didn't, for whatever reason. Whether it was the pain, whether it was the injury. Everybody's injury is different. So I don't want to knock a guy because of turf toe. But turf toe knocked him out. Then he had a nagging leg injury that went through the offseason, and he couldn't go to the combine. He couldn't test. If Will Johnson didn't battle these ailments, he might be the number 1 corner. I believe he's going to be a first-round pick, and I believe he's going to go somewhere. I think he'll be the second corner after Shedeur Sanders. But could Will Johnson, if somebody somehow has information, talks to Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator there, talks to, different guys that have been through the Michigan program, maybe they get some intel that says this guy's fine. He's clean. Like he just had to get healthy. But when healthy, he's going to be legit. Shedeur Barron just, he's been healthy. He's done it. And he's played a variety of positions. So, but Will Johnson is interesting because could he drop? Could he drop right now with these ailments and the fact that he hasn't tested? Everybody wants to see these guys run. They just do. You got to, because you can't draft a corner in the first round if he can't run with these wide receivers. Like they got to be able to run. They got to be able to backpedal with these guys, run sideways with these guys, clue the quarterback and run with these guys. They got to stay in phase and stay on the upfield shoulder with these receivers in this league. And if you can't do that, you can't play man coverage. You could be a zone corner, and but everybody's got to play some level of man. You're blitzing, you're playing some level of man in this business. So that's why these times on these corners is really important. All right, my next player is maybe my cleanest and maybe my favorite player in this whole draft, and that's Tyler Booker from Alabama. I want to compare him to Trey Smith, who is the Pro Bowl right guard for the Kansas City Chiefs, who was a 6th-round pick of the Chiefs. And he was a 6th-round pick because 4 years ago, he was battling blood clots coming out of Tennessee. But he was a 5-star recruit to Tennessee. The talent was always there. But I talked to teams that literally took Trey Smith off their board because they didn't want to be clouded by these serious medical concerns. Now, he has not had any issues, and he's played nearly every play. But the reason why I compare him isn't for any other reason except that I believe Tyler Booker can very much be Trey Smith. I don't think he's quite as athletic. However, when people look at athleticism, they say, oh, what's his 40 time? Okay, he runs a 5.3. That's slow. And it is. But to me, athletic ability for an offensive lineman is, are you on the ground? Are you constantly falling down? Do you lose your balance? Do you get off balance? Like Tyler Booker is square. He's got a great guard stance. He's 6'5". He's 335 pounds. All right. He's been starting for 2 years at Alabama. 36 starts at Alabama. You're going up against elite players every day in practice. All right. You're the team captain at Alabama. Like this, when I went to offensive line masterminds last year in Frisco, Texas, the first guy that came up to me, there's a lot of college kids that come to these things now, but the whole Alabama offensive line came. The starting 5 came. And he came up and introduced himself to me. Baldy, been a big fan. I'd love for you to, if we could sit down and watch some tape with you and maybe give us some pointers. That's what kind of kid he is. He just wants to be better. Like in early July, just weeks before they had to go to training camp, he's in Frisco talking to Trey Smith, talking to Creed Humphrey, talking to, different players that have done it, Lane Johnson, different guys that have done it. He wanted to learn. That says a lot about who he is. The year before, Graham Barton was at Duke. He came. He's a 1st-round pick and going to be a great player in this league for a long time in Tampa. I feel like that's what you're getting. You're getting leadership. You're getting steady play. You're getting a big body. You're getting a tough kid, a smart kid. He works with a guy named Pootie Carson. Pootie Carson is for Pittsburgh. He trained Aaron Donald in Krav Maga martial arts. All right. Aaron Donald will tell you one of the reasons why he became what he was because of Pootie. Well, Pootie went to Alabama last year, and he worked with Tyler Booker and, Caden Proctor and the guys at Alabama. And they worked on their hands in their martial arts because it's important, hand-to-hand combat. Tyler Booker. My last player is Shedeur. So he's the most polarizing pick in this whole draft because legitimately Shedeur could go number 2 to Cleveland, number 3 to the Giants, number 9 to the New Orleans Saints. He could go, or he could drop to the bottom of the 1st round. All those things are possible. And he's a quarterback. So we always talk about quarterbacks in the draft. Is he the number 2 quarterback? Does he drop to the number 3 quarterback? So the Giants are going out tomorrow to Boulder, Colorado to have a private workout with him. Now, is that unusual? No. They're going to do that with Tyler Shuck. They're going to do it with a lot of the quarterbacks. But it is interesting that they are going out there after signing Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. There's no Giant fan that thinks Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston is going to lead the Giants to the playoffs next year, or maybe even to a winning season. Like they just don't believe that. Shedeur Sanders, though, like, first of all, this guy, man, I don't know if anybody was pressured, blitzed more. They don't blitz a lot in college football. Most teams play a 3-3 double cloud, 3-man defensive front to drop you in covers to cover the spread offenses, to be lined up when teams are running a play every 16 seconds. Colorado had to run a basic, simplistic Chip Kelly-style college offense because they didn't have offensive linemen that could hold up. They didn't have a running back that was elite. They didn't have a tight end that could protect the edges. So Shedeur basically was, I saw teams max blitz like it's the NFL, like it's Steve Spagnuolo of Kansas City in a Super Bowl. And we're not going to let you score. We're going to blitz zero you. Take the safeties out and just come after you. Like that's what Shedeur was up against. And he had to learn 5 offenses in his time in college. I like him. I don't think he has an elite arm, but it's good enough arm. Like he knows where to go with the ball. I think he can process. I think he can learn. And despite what some people once say, he's all about business and all about work and going to work. He understands what the job of playing quarterback is. And his teammates at Jackson State and Colorado loved him. And everybody around him loved him. So anyways, that's my no fear tier. A couple guys could make that leap. Arman Membou into the first tier. Shedeur Sanders could make that leap into the first tier. All right. Some guys could fall out of the second tier. All right. We'll get to the third tier in the next episode of the Best Football Show. Thanks for joining me. I'm Brian Baldinger.